right. Ready?
You're ready.
Hey, Phil. Thanks for joining me today to go through a couple manager questions for my organizational behavior class. Before we get into it, I would love to hear a little bit about you and your background and how you got into your current role.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. Thanks for having me join this little session here. My background is mechanical engineering. I started out doing stuff for the government, more or less missile work, and moved into high volume manufacturing at 3M, more or less manufacturing engineering, yields, process improvements. Then that kind of led me to a role at Nike, where I was in more manufacturing. The role at 3M kind of translated to Nike very well, and did that for a handful of years out of St. Louis, and then got into supply chain operations and logistics with Nike as well out of Memphis. That role eventually led me through a colleague who referred me to Google, where I currently support um, data center logistics globally, and just more or less deployments and all that good stuff to keep Google's products and services online.
That's
My
awesome.
background.
I completely forgot you were at 3M for a little while. That's a fun path. 3M, Nike, Google.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man.
This first question is like right up your alley. Looking back at your career path, how much of your progress do you attribute to your own skills versus the relationships and mentors you've had?
Yeah, I think it's a combo of both. Um, Very, very much so. I'll speak to the academia plus
Mm-hmm.
professional side. I I'm a big fan of like tying in academia with my work, just so I
Mm,
better understand it. I can speak the vernacular or understand, the buzzwords, what have you, when it comes to whether it's engineering or business or something like that.
yeah.
So I started out again with mechanical engineering that moves into kind of like project management at 3M and Nike. And so I
Mm,
went and
mm-hmm.
got a engineering management master's while I was at uh, Nike, more or less,
Mm-hmm.
and utilized that for large scale capital equipment installation. When I was doing that, I took a business course. I was really interested in that. So I pursued an MBA
Mm-hmm.
while I was, MBA for ROI, for again, understanding the local side of things, speaking with business partners, our colleagues in the work environment. And then even more so moved into supply chain. So I'm finishing up a master's in supply chain. So I've always believed in tying in
Education.
academia with professional experience, and it's kind
Interesting.
of tracked with my career.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say relationships. I my current role I wouldn't have gotten if it wasn't for the relationships that
Mm-hmm.
were built. I worked with a colleague at Nike who moved to Google, then I got referred to Google. So and then other previous roles and or promotions were touched in most definitely on the relationship side.
Yeah.
Big big believer that I probably play more heavy handed on the relationship side.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry if you hear my son in the background.
You're good.
And yeah, I play more on the relationship side. I think 80% of your job is communication, understanding what others need, and all that
Mm-hmm.
good stuff comes in a stakeholder management. So I'm a big believer that you should know a little bit about the people you're working with, whether that's creating a rapport with them. It's not like you have to become best friends with everybody. That's really
Yeah.
hard to do. But
Yeah.
at least knowing something about the individual, because when the times get tough, you can lean back into that personal, or at least that acquaintance level information you have with them, like their kid plays a certain sport, or they really enjoy a certain type of music, or they enjoy a type of food, or they went on a trip recently and you recall that, and tying those into the workplace has always been beneficial, and it's created really good relationship skills, for me at least. So that's kind of on both fronts, on the academia side and on the relationship side, and how I've kind of navigated some of that.
I've actually never heard that before, but it makes a lot of sense because you essentially are like just learning it in academia and then you're applying it to real life and then you're probably using that as like reinforcement
Yeah.
for the learning. That's super
Well,
cool.
yeah, absolutely. But there's not to say that, right, that comes at a cost. So you got to decide whether that's something you want to,
Yeah.
right? It's not
Yeah.
a traditional master's doesn't, it's not attainable for, every individual. So, but there's lots of great learning out there to be able
Mhm.
to tie in. Like, you don't, like, someone said something in a meeting and you just didn't understand it. Like they said, a bunch of acronyms, you didn't know what ROI, what's that? You've been in the engineering space your whole life and you haven't really done
Yeah.
project management. You're like, return on investment, payback period. What's that? And
Mhm.
so, or like a bearing, if you didn't know, like, this motor utilizes a bearing. And if you didn't understand that technical side of it, there's a lot of good opportunities to go dive and learn in that. So, wanting to know more about stuff is kind of just
Oh, yeah.
been some sort of intrinsic motivation, I guess.
Yeah. No, I like it. I'm going to jump to the next one. When you are
Yeah.
mentioning like a new first time leader, and it could be leader in any sense, right? Formal or informal. What's the number one people skill you tell them that is like more critical than technical experience?
Mention the question again. If I'm
So kind of
leading a
just
new
think of
leader, or
you have a new leader. They're technically really strong. So what are the things you kind of emphasize more on, like the soft skills side of things? So you touched on communication and stuff, but like what would you recommend to like maybe like an engineer who's like heavy on the technical side that's never had done like the people influencing piece before?
well, I think they need to learn that, right? I mean, I think engineers are known for being square, maybe is the term. I don't know if that's the right term, but they're
Yeah.
known for not really being, oh, I don't know how you put it, right? Not creative, because there's a lot of people who are creative and they have technical backgrounds. I think
Yeah.
just the human side of it, the skill set, like, eh, you need to be able to take something extremely technical, right? And then relate that information to someone who's not, right? So I
Mhm.
guess you got making the complex simple, right? So I think
Yeah.
a skill set and that could go from a business individual, a supply chain individual, like, more or less, if you can't explain it to like a 10-year-old, then in my opinion, you need to rethink how you're communicating things. I'm not saying that everyone in the workforce is 10-year-olds, but like, how much more broadly can you make an understanding to someone easier for them to grasp it, right? When you think about like Lean Six Sigma and things in manufacturing, what that does is you can have people who are super technical and people who are not super technical speaking the same language.
Yeah.
And so what that does, right? People get their green belt, they get their black belt, and in Lean Six Sigma, lean methodologies. And at least what some of that does is it makes people understand like what the goal is of the business, of the manufacturing, of the operation line. That's the same way with like a leader being able to speak to a colleague, no matter who the level is, what they do inside of the organization, making the complex simple, I think is
Mm-hmm.
it can be with either a technical person or even like a business minded person. How do you relay information to someone so that they understand it? I think that's kind of where those skill sets need to be aligned, regardless of technical or business or supply chain or whatever, product marketing. How do you
Yeah.
make it in, I guess you would say, not layman's terms, but
Yeah.
maybe that is the term.
Yeah.
So someone can understand it, right? Because you can get with someone who just speaks a bunch of buzzwords and nobody cares. Nobody's gonna care. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's gonna care at the end of the day. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's like, all right, how do you simply state the problem or the solution or the information? Yeah.
No, I like it. Yeah, especially like if the person is more technical, they're probably going to want to jump more into the details, right? So it's just keeping it
Yeah,
more
yeah.
high level and yeah, bare bones.
Yeah. I mean, if you go into a business meeting, you start talking about like the torque values on bolts and how they shear off, and you're gonna lose people in and within 30 seconds. So, but how do you relate? Like, it's very important that we do this step or we do this thing, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, and relay that to the people, your audience, whoever's listening. So again, complex, make it simple.
Yeah, you're doing really good. You're actually covering a lot of some of the future questions. So this is great. Here, next one. So people have like a situation they don't know how to solve. It's like a new problem that their business or their area of like focus, they've never had it before. They don't know what to do or like even where to start. How do you coach people through situations like that?
At least I think it from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah, go.
There's yeah, I mean, foundation, right? I think the word is like first principles, and you'll hear that, like, break it down into first principles, but you kind of break it apart into segments. What do you know? What are your assumptions? And what bits of information or research, whether that's people in your organization that who can help you out. So, right, if you're part of a corporation, or I don't imagine it, Alex's solo adventure through life, or Phil's solo adventure through life. What people do you have in your network that you can reach out to solve the problem, right? So you look at it, you crack it open, you let it lay out in front of you. What are the assumptions? What are your knowns? What are your unknowns? There's got to be similarities to something inside of the problem that you can utilize. So it's first laying it out in front of you. What are the knowns? What are the unknowns? What are the assumptions? What are things that you have at your disposal? People, research, information, where you can go and get that. You're not trying to recreate the wheel. You're not inventing. Most likely there's something similar that has been solved, or at least has parallels that you can pull from to be able to do that. So again, it's just breaking it open at the beginning and writing down everything you know about it, brainstorming, getting that in line, and then moving forward, right? What are you trying to solve? And then you work towards that, and you're probably going to come up with a solution that works, right? 80% of the way there. Move forward. That's kind of how I would approach that.
No, I like that. Yeah, you're kind of going back to like simplify it again, but then also like relying on SMEs or someone who has like faced a similar problem. I think that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all a team effort. Like, you're most likely working in an environment where you have folks who, unless everyone is not willing to help you, but that's probably usually not the case.
Yeah. I think you're gonna like this next one. How do you handle a team member who's constantly pushing back, kind of basically saying, this is how we've always done it?
Well, absolutely sit down and work with them to understand why it's always been done that way. What's the uniqueness that it can't be changed, right? I think that status quo can be the way to go, but it's not always the way to go. I think that there's always room for minutia of tweaks or improvements. So you're gonna have to come to the table with the question of why don't we change it? And then the next one is come already with a fully baked, not solution, but way forward, maybe. To show that person, like, hey, you're gonna meet them in the middle. You're gonna ask them why it can't be changed. Kill them with kindness. Ask the questions. Push in different areas that you've seen improvements elsewhere, and then continue to push on that, right? And include them in on the process. Include them in, right? If you come up with a legit solution that is against it, put their name front and center. I don't know. It depends on who it is, right? Put their name front and center. Give them credit. Like, for all inventors, I think there would be a billion products every day, but we're always tweaking others' ideas, and that's okay. Give them credit and move through the process. Kill them with kindness. Pull them in to the solutionizing, and help them see what you're trying to achieve. Right?
Yeah. No, I like it. And that actually is our last question. So thank you so much, Phil. Appreciate it.
No problem.